Welcome back to another episode of the Style and Strategy podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Julie Ciardi, who is a leader in helping women unlock their unique potential through human design and the gene keys. Julie is an expert at showing how self-awareness can actually fuel success. So whether you're leading in the boardroom or growing your business, this is an episode you're going to want to listen to. We are going to be covering off on how you can use these powerful frameworks to break through on what might actually be holding you back in your career or business, and whether it's you looking for more visibility, seeking recognition, or ready to elevate your brand. Today's conversation is packed with actionable insights to step you into your next level. Julie's personal journey from corporate exec to entrepreneur thought leader will leave you inspired. Her approach to clarity and breakthrough using the tools like human design and the gene keys is a game changer. So grab a coffee, settle in, or go for the walk and listen in. This episode's full of strategies that you'll be able to use going forward.
I'm Sonia, a personal brand and style coach. My journey began in the corporate world and through lived experiences has led me where I am today. I've walked in those uncomfortable shoes, faced the same challenges and questioned my path to professional success while simultaneously navigating my personal style journey and the challenges that each decade brings. I wholeheartedly believe in the fusion of personal brand and style strategy. My mission here is to provide you with practical, actionable strategies and lived experiences to help you unlock your next level of success through the power of personal brand and style. Let's get started.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the Style and Strategy podcast. I am so excited to be able to have Julie Ciardi here with me. And as you know, it's no fluff, so we're going to get straight into it. So Julie, thank you so much for being on the show with me. It's about 6:30 a.m. in AU and you are based in New York, right?
I am. It's 3:30 in the afternoon here.
Amazing. Okay, so let's get into it. I really want to be able to talk about a key turning point in your life where there was a moment where you realized that your personal brand or your identity needed to change. What was sort of the catalyst for that shift?
I love to talk about this. And when you posed this question, it came back to me so crystal clear. It just happened yesterday, but it was really 8 years ago that it happened. And I was a vice president of marketing and sales at IBM, had been there for like 16, 17 years, been in corporate for 20. And I knew for years that I was not in the right career. I knew for years I wasn't doing the thing that I was meant to do in this world. But it was that moment. I actually had read a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. I keep it behind me all the time because it was such a powerful, pivotal moment. And I realized after reading that book, I remember I was partway through it. I was in my son's nursery. He's now 10. So he was like 18 months or so when this all transpired. And I knew without a doubt I was in the wrong career, doing the wrong thing that I was meant to do. And I knew that I needed to change not just my career and what I was doing. I knew I needed a complete shift in who I was being, who I was showing up as. I wasn't being authentically me. I definitely wasn't being authentically me in that career with IBM. And I kind of buried it, pushed it under the rug for a very long time. And it was about eight and a half years ago where it was a flip that switched, that I knew things had to change or I would have regrets when I was older.
Yeah, amazing. And then how do you think that at that point, how do you think that then it started to show up in your work and life?
Well, you know what's so funny, Sonia, is like, I love that we're having this conversation because I love kind of reminiscing and thinking back to it. Something shifted instantaneously. So I call when you take something that's a someday goal and you bring it in and all of a sudden it's something that you're going to begin to work on now, I call it the now goal. And what happened in that moment was a decision. I really believe that when you make a decision, you can shift things in the moment. So I made the decision in that moment. I didn't know the how. I didn't know how it was all going to play out. I didn't even know what the end result was going to be. But I made a decision in that moment. Then, and in that decision making, I immediately became a different version of me. It was almost like the Julie before that decision and the Julie after that decision, right? And so the Julie after that decision, right? I saw the world differently. I saw possibilities differently, all from like a point in time of a decision. And I nothing happens overnight, because it took me from that moment of that decision, gosh, from there till when I actually left IBM fully was 2 years. And so much went in those 2 years of growing 2 different businesses and, you know, working to leave IBM, and we can go wherever you want to go with that story. But it took 2 years to officially fully leave, but it was that decision that I changed and I became a different version of me, a better version of me that started to unravel in all the pieces after making that one decision.
Yeah, amazing. Because when you make that decision, and then like you said, you know, it wasn't until a couple of years later that you then left and went and started a number of businesses. What I find is that a lot of women who go down that path as well is suddenly you hit this point of reinvention. You suddenly hit the point of, hang on, I'm off doing this, but I don't know who I am anymore. I'm going to take everything from my work life and try to push it into this new world. But then sometimes you find that you hit a wall and it's kind of not working for you. And so at that point of that reinvention, when you actually moved out, what would you say was some of the, I guess, memorable moments for you?
Yeah, well, it's so interesting that you say that, because that's exactly what happened. I feel like when I was at IBM, there was the real me that was actually trying to push through. Like I didn't want to dress the way everyone was dressing. And I always felt like I was on this outside of everyone else and what they were thinking and doing and feeling and being. And it was almost felt like I felt like a rebel. I always felt a bit of a rebel at IBM. But then when I left IBM and was starting my businesses and going into the entrepreneurial world, I find that I was bringing quite a bit of that corporate mindset into the entrepreneurial world. So it was kind of interesting, right? I think that for me, it was finding this balance. So when I went into the entrepreneurial space and started my businesses, I kind of expected that since I already had success in the corporate world, that it would, and I had success very quickly. I was very used to getting promoted quickly and getting to the next level and seeing these results and getting the bonuses and all of those things. So I just felt like if I worked really hard, I'd have the same success in business, which was not true. It wasn't about working harder. I needed to show up differently. So that was really challenging. I had to really realize that who I was being, my thinking, my feeling, how I was showing up needed to be different in my own businesses than I had been as an employee. That was one, but also not to totally let go of what I had learned and who I became and the skills and accomplishments from corporate. So I was in this kind of like, well, that's over. And now I'm into entrepreneurship. And I had a coach say to me, you know, she wanted me to like stand up on this ottoman. It was in her house. We were doing this like retreat, and she wanted me to stand up on this ottoman in her house. And like, we all had to like do a speech of like who we are and like with like force, you know? And it wasn't coming out of me. I was like, I was still very new in entrepreneurship. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't have the results yet. You know, I don't have the results of the business yet. And she's like, I'm sorry, wait a minute. Didn't you tell me that you spoke on stages for IBM? Weren't you like at a LinkedIn conference speaking on a LinkedIn stage? I'm like, yeah. She's like, didn't you have like you were a vice president with a team of like 300 people running a global part of the company. And I'm like, well, yeah. And she's like, that's a part of this whole story. This is who you are and what it can accomplish. And it took her saying that for me to go, you're right. That is actually a part of my identity. And it is a part of something that I created for myself. And I shouldn't walk away from that. So I find that my pattern tends to be, well, I did that, done that, time to move on to the next, instead of kind of pulling the pieces that really do show who I am and it's part of the reinvention. So when we reinvent, we don't have to then just let go, pick and choose those things that really reflect who you are. I never even remember to say, yeah, I was a collegiate athlete. Like I played soccer in college. Like there's only in the US anyway, there's only like, I don't know, 5-7% of college students play a collegiate sport. Like I played a collegiate sport. I don't talk about it. I don't bring it through. And I realize that as I've been going through, I think we're always reinventing, but I think as I'm still going through this evolutionary process, I'm still looking back and bringing forward those things that actually was Julie, the true Julie, that the real authentic me, and bringing those pieces through as part of the full story versus like, well, that was the past. I'm just on to the next version of Julie. And that's been a lesson big time.
Yeah, wow. There's so much really to unpack there because again, whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're a professional and you're looking at that next leadership role, all of that sort of thing, you know you've got those skills there, but you kind of go, well, these are what I see is a lot of women go, but these are all my gaps. That's the first thing you go to. And so being able to really recognize those gifts that you have and you've built on and worked really hard on, and being able to leverage those in whatever circumstance you move forward is such an important, call out there because it applies in so many different circumstances. So I know that you are really, focused on supporting businesses and individuals around something called, for those of you who haven't heard, a concept called human design and the gene keys. And as someone who has come from that corporate world and really has only delved into the sort of spiritual side of things recently, this is how I actually found Julie. And I love the way in which you talk about it because you do a bit of a combination of, it's not so woo, it's in between. And I think that's a real gift you have. But so Julie, maybe if you could give a bit of context around really how you discovered it and how it's really changed the way you see your brand and how that's sort of evolved into your business.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that, when I started my coaching business, I was really helping women with what I was good at, marketing. I have my master's in marketing. I was marketing vice president at IBM. So marketing, as I started that was one of my favorite parts of becoming an entrepreneur and, going into the whole social media space and everything. I'm like, oh, this is fun. Like I'm kind of that one, like the not the huge percentage of entrepreneurs. They want to go in and do the thing that they love, but I also love the marketing. Like I love it. I geek out on it. And so I very quickly was able to learn so much about the online marketing space in addition to my timeless training and experience in marketing. So that's where I first went. And it was so much fun because what I found was there was a huge gap in the market that so many women wanted to, maybe either leave corporate or do their own thing and have their own business, but they really struggled with the marketing, right? The how, kind of the how-to marketing. How do I market myself? How do I get clients? How do I get my message and my brand out there? So that's where I started. But what was funny is that as I was working with more and more women, I would find that some could take the strategies, take the how-to, go do it, and get results. And then all these other women, actually more women than not, were getting the exact same training and support from me, were not going out and getting the results or weren't even taking what I was teaching and putting it out there. And I'm like, I'm a very curious person and I observe and I watch. And I just was like, always trying to problem solve. So I'm thinking, that's great that they got these results. Why did they not? It's the same strategy. And that's what led me down the pathway of working to help figure out how to close that gap of results for some and not others, because it's not just about the action. And so that's what led me down this entire pathway from working with Bob Proctor. And I tried different tools. Like I tried the Enneagram, I tried some different tools. I came down to the problem is us, right? The problem is always us. The solution is always us as well, as Bob Proctor used to say. It was about how these women saw themselves. It was about fears of putting themselves out there. It was what we all call limiting beliefs, but paradigms, stories in their head, not knowing actually how to market themselves because they really weren't sure what their gifts and genius really were. They didn't know how to differentiate themselves against other people in their space. So I could teach someone how to do marketing all day long. If they were missing some of those core components or there was things that were holding them back, it wouldn't matter. And so on that search, that is when I came across human design and the gene keys. And what I love about these tools, and we can talk a little bit about what they are, it's because I'm a very logical person. I am, like you said, I'm not super woo. I think I'm the perfect person to do what I'm doing, though, because I think that you're either over in the camp of woo or you're in the camp of logical, practical solutions for business. I really love to marry the two together. And I think they absolutely are together when you are a female business owner who is selling services. You are selling your services, who you are, why you do them the way that you do them, why you can get results. So it is a spiritual thing. It is a purpose-driven thing. I mean, you have to really bring them together. And so the thing that I loved about human design and the gene keys is that in all the coaching I had been doing, I could coach someone one-on-one or in a group setting, and I could see their gifts. I could see their genius. I could see why I'm like, I would geek out for them. I'd be like, oh, you could totally position yourself this way or that way. And I'd get excited, but they couldn't see it. And so when we brought in human design and the gene keys, I feel like it gave people like this MRI or ultrasound view into themselves to see their gifts, their potential, their genius, what they were here to do in the world. And I needed them to see it, not me to tell them it. And that's what's been this additional tool, this tool set has been so fabulous, because when we're coaching and doing timeless business stuff, and then I teach them how to go understand themselves better, they're having breakthroughs without me being with them, right? They're having these breakthroughs by just studying themselves because I teach them how. And it's just been incredible. Like I literally, before we got on here, I had run a workshop for our students, and like immediately after the workshop was over, one of the female entrepreneurs like posted in the Facebook group and was like, oh my God. Like, she's like, everything just opened up for me. She's like, I see now why I had a hard time with this and why I really want to go in this direction. And like, something opened up and busted through in her because she was reading her design. Yeah. In human design and gene keys, typically what happens is you have an expert that gives you a reading and you sit with them and they read your whole design body graph, and like it looks like a foreign language to you, and so you just trust this person to just give you a reading, and then you're like, okay, thanks, and maybe you'll have a little bit of breakthrough here and there. But what I came to realize is that women needed to be able to read their own. You need to be able to look at your design and see it for yourself. And you know how us women are, once we do that, we want to do it for people that we love. And we want to do it for, maybe our own clients and all the things. And so it's just been such an honor to be a part of this process, to kind of just be this guide. And my genius is to simplify things so that people can really like comprehend it, because it is like another language, but really being able to bring it in so that people and women specifically can really see their inner gift and genius, and then combine it with timeless, simple business strategies, like the totally practical, marketing and sales and how to get clients and grow your business. And so to me, it's a marriage made in heaven.
Yeah. I think one of those core components is, we talk a lot about, I can give clients a whole lot of strategies when it comes to their personal brand and style. But if they're not ready to step into and understand, well, who are you? What are your values? What sits behind all that? When we start to look at that, then it doesn't matter what clothes I put on them. It doesn't matter, what I bring out. They won't be able to step into that next kind of version of themselves until they're ready to do that. So it's a bit of a journey. And I love the way that human design and the gene keys, and especially the way that you teach it, does, really helps to break that open. So tell me, a lot of entrepreneurs and those in leadership roles sometimes, struggle with a little bit of self-confidence, a little bit of self-doubt around themselves. So what advice would you give them if you look back in your career on both sides as to what really helped to kind of take that next step to get you to where you really want to be?
Yeah, I love this question because I think that we have been taught to have confidence before we act, or the whole thing of fake it till you make it and all of that stuff. And honestly, what I think really we have the wrong C word in the beginning here. To me, it's you got to get some courage. Courage, when put into action, will breed confidence. So to me, my confidence has grown after I've taken action, not before, because we don't know, right? So if it's like, if we're going to do something big, like, all right, I'm going to go and I'm going to, like, I'll give you a great example. When I started my podcast like 6 years ago, right? I can remember, it was 6.5 now. I can remember not having any confidence. I'm like, is anyone going to listen to this? I have no idea. I created the first 3 episodes before I put it out there. No idea. So I didn't have the confidence. I had some confidence in what I said on those episodes, but I did not have the confidence of like, is this people's going to laugh at this? Is anyone going to even listen to this? Is this even worth my time? I don't even know. Like all this uncertainty and lacking of knowing, confidence is knowing, right? And so I wouldn't know that if I didn't have the courage to put it out there, right? So I had the courage to launch it to the world, launch it to my audience, launch it to my family friends, because back then it was more family friends, right? And that's what breeded the confidence. It was then putting it out there and then having people say, oh my God, I listened to the first 3 episodes. That was so incredible. I can't wait for the next one. And that's when the confidence comes. So when you don't have confidence, but you know the next action, get the courage to take the action, and then the confidence actually follows that, not before. You could be waiting a long time.
I love that. It's so true, because when you do take that step into courage, then suddenly the ability to move into that next step, whatever that looks like for anyone, just becomes that little bit easier every time.
It does. And I think, when I was just thinking of a time when I had the opportunity to go from a director level position at IBM to a vice president, even then I can remember, like, I was so afraid, right? What was I afraid of? Because I was uncertain, because I didn't have the confidence. I'd never done anything like that before. The confidence didn't come until I was actually already in the position. And then I was doing the thing. I think what happens is that we wait. We wait until we think we feel ready, until we feel confident, until we feel, but you know what? We may never get to that ahead of time. And so I think that's what stops a lot of people from moving forward on these goals and dreams that they know that they want to go and do,
Absolutely. So let me fast forward a little bit. So particularly for women and those that are in kind of midlife, and midlife has this definition these days around, I think I read somewhere early 40s or late 30s, all the way kind of up. How do you think, because a lot of women get to 50 and there's this shift, right? That kind of happens. And, then we've got that brand identity and reinvention again, right? It's ever changing. So how do you think, or what's your advice around, hitting 50 and going, okay, well, hang on, what's next?
I love this question because I love that you brought up that midlife could be, is it like 30 something? Is it whatever? I think that's a probably good clue of, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Because if you're like, oh, midlife's 50, then you're expecting to live to 100 or beyond. If you're like feeling like you're already at midlife at age 38, 40, well, then you're not thinking that way, right? So I do think it's such an interesting, for me, I'm like 50 at least, I have like every desire and intention of living past 100 if I can. I think what's so cool, and this is actually tied into human design, which I think is awesome. Like, I've never bought in, before I ever even knew about human design, I never bought into the idea that you retire. Like, I hated the word retirement. Like, why? Like, I never want to stop doing what I love. I think when people that are so excited about retirement are escaping a career they don't love. Yeah. If you're so excited about retirement, you don't love what you're doing. I really don't think so. I mean, there's a few exceptions here and there, but if someone loves what they're doing and they want to retire, it's probably because they're about to start something else, right? Like, to me, it's the idea of doing nothing, or like just, having all this free time and not doing anything. I have no desire to ever do that. Like, I want to create and build and grow and all the things. And so I think that women especially have a really unique opportunity as we near 50 and go over 50. Because for many of us, not all of us, but for many of us, we spent probably the last couple of decades growing a family and raising a family and getting them out the door and starting their lives. Or even if you have children, you don't have children, you probably spent the last couple of decades really building your body of expertise, your legacy of work, no matter what you were doing or how many times you even changed careers or whatever, you were building wisdom, skills, knowledge, right? All these things. So what's amazing is right around like 50 and beyond, it's the most beautiful time to be able to take all of that building that you did in your career or, knowledge and things like that, skills, hopefully having a bit more time in your life because you have a bit more time without having to, be raising the kids and doing all those things, like multitasking like crazy. It's like the perfect time to step in, reinvent, and start to really go after the big legacy dream that you have. In fact, I had the opportunity to interview a founder of a company in the US called MIDI Health, and she's 56. She's either 56 or 57. And like literally just founded this company that's slated to be like the next $1 billion business. And she started it in mid 50s. And she said to me, from what I've seen, she goes, my entire staff of executives, all women over 50. She said, I think investors should be giving their money to women-owned businesses over 50 because we just have the energy, the knowledge, the passion, this energy to like go and be successful. And I'm like, I feel that 100%. And I have to tell you, I never heard that before. Growing up, I thought 50 was old. Growing up, I thought by 50, you're totally thinking about retirement and being done. And what does that mean? I don't think enough of us are talking about that life is like beginning, like this next beautiful phase. It's why, I've been writing this book. It's coming out in February called 50 Not Finished. Like, we're just getting started. And the more women I talk about that concept with, the more women are like, yeah, I feel the same way. It's incredible. It's a really exciting time to be part of that shift, especially for women.
No, totally. And I think I love hearing about that organization and the fact that, all the board members and all the senior execs are at that level because they've got just this wealth of experience and knowledge. So now reflecting back over the years, I want you to have a bit of a think around what your personal brand and what your style was like through your evolution. And whether that's from your hair to your clothes, etc. What would you say are some maybe memorable outfits, changes that occurred through that life cycle?
Yeah, well, I'll start with my hair because I have always been obsessed with hair. I have colored my hair every color you can possibly imagine, including every different length, hairstyle. I mean, if you go and grab a bunch of albums, photo albums from my family room and you start flipping through, I think that would stand out the most in terms of like, whoa, like the difference. I was always willing to try something new. I actually have very curly hair. I straighten it out, but I have times when I was, wearing it curly. I mean, that if you looked at me from, the age of 16 to now 50, that would be the biggest evolution and constant trying something new. I was never afraid to try something new. I knew hair was always going to grow. And when I was 47, 3 years ago, I made the deliberate decision that I knew what I wanted to look like going into my 50s and beyond. And I had this vision of, after coloring my hair for 30 years, that I was going to embrace my natural silver gray hair. It was scary, but it was like, talk about this within human design. We talk about just trusting your inner authority. And my inner authority was screaming like, you're meant to like grow this out. You're meant to have your hair the natural color, like try it. And so I did. And it was a really fun transition and I'm keeping it. I love it. I'm going to keep rocking it. But that hair, big time, like that's been an evolution and very intentional, and I've had a lot of fun with it. In terms of style and clothing, it's really interesting. It's so based on my mood. When I wake up in the morning, it's a lot about feeling comfortable. So I'm less going to be, and I never have been the like wear something, even if it's super uncomfortable, that it looks amazing, like maybe for like a wedding or something or a big party. But for the most part, I really like to feel comfortable. My mom will tell you I was that way as a kid. If clothing didn't feel good on me, I didn't want to wear it. So there's something there. But style wise, I think the biggest thing that jumps out for me is I've always, especially at like events, shows, parties, whatever it was going to be, I've always wanted to have something that I was wearing that no one else was wearing. I always so I would go on hunts, right? Like I want a dress or, a jumpsuit or something that like no one else will be wearing anything like it in the room. And I always I had this desire to like show up that way. So I have a lot of fun doing that. I still do that. I have a lot of fun right now where I do a photo shoot every month with a local photographer, and I use Rent the Runway, the membership that I don't know if you have that in Australia, but it is amazing because I can hand select. I kind of curate a capsule of 5 pieces or 6 pieces that we're going to utilize in that shoot. And so that's my creative part coming out. Like I'm this 2-4 in human design. I like things to look a certain way. And so that's been so fun for me to do that. But I like to mix it up. Like if you go back and if you looked at all the photo shoots over the last year, which has probably been 13 of them, I look totally different in all of them in terms of like, sometimes it's flowy and feminine and dresses, and other times it's fierce and leather and, darker colors and fur. And sometimes it's a graphic tee and jeans. And, so I have a lot of fun trying out all different things when it comes to style. I guess the same way with my hair. I just really like variety. And so I would never say I had a set style ever, because it's always been trying something new, seeing what's working. I do like some trends. I'm not super trendy, but I like to see what's trending. And I'll tell you what, Sonia, I have a 21-year-old daughter who's super into fashion. And so she's
Yeah.
been awesome to have because she'll like send me messages. She's like, oh, look at this or look at that. And so, and she's got a more specific style for her. So she helps me sometimes too. So it's just really
Yeah.
fun now, it can be
I love
expensive, but
that.
it's very fun. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no,
Variety
amazing.
is big, but I'm also very discerning. I know what I like and I know what I don't like for me,
Yeah, no, amazing. I know I've seen some amazing shoots of you also presenting and even presenting back at work and seeing sort of the shifts between. And I love seeing those evolutions with individuals as they're going through
I'll
change.
say one last thing if you don't mind. I do remember though, when I was at IBM, I always felt like I didn't have the freedom. So,
Mm,
everything there was so corporate, so stuffy. If someone wore something, some people would talk about it. You know what I mean? And so I can
yeah,
remember when I would go into the office, I'd be like I wouldn't even like what I was wearing, because I felt like I
yeah,
couldn't really dress like me
yeah.
back then. And I remember feeling very stifled by that.
No, and I think you can definitely see the spark, even for those who are watching on YouTube, you can see Julie in her bright pink blazer, which looks amazing against the grey, salt and pepper grey. Okay, so quick 3 fire questions to kind of wrap up. So, well, I think you've answered a little bit of it, but if you had to pick a signature style piece for Julie of today, what would that be?
I love jeans. I love jeans. So to me, jeans with heels and some kind of like shirt that really stands out, something very different and unique. So like flared jeans for certain, long flared jeans with heels and some kind of like shirt that really stands out, like a blouse, something that can get tucked in with the jeans. My favorite.
Amazing. And for those listeners looking for inspiration, right? So, what maybe transformational read, and I know you're an avid reader, what transformational read would you say has had maybe one of the most significant impacts in your, like, I'm going to call it your leadership journey, but what would you call out, or potentially what's something you're reading or listening to today that you would say, is having an impact?
It's so funny, and I know it's rapid fire, but I'll just say real quick that I
Yeah.
do think that depending on where someone's at, it's almost like I have a different book I'd recommend based on where you're at. But in
Yeah.
terms of the biggest impact for me that created the most catalytic, you know, change in me
Mm,
was, believe it or not, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Now, I will tell
no.
you, when I first read that, I was like, oh, I like put it back on the shelf. I'm like, this is dry, this is whatever. And then I started to work with Bob Proctor, and he was just such a huge influence on me. And he said, well, I read that book every single day, a piece of it since I was 26 years old. I'm like, really? Like, maybe I
Wow.
should take that back off the shelf and check it out. And then I started to study it. His recommendation was to
Mm,
study it, not read it. And that worked. It really shifted me from the corporate mindset to the entrepreneurial mindset and what my role in my success was going to be. So,
I love that piece of advice to study it, not just read it, because yeah, it can be a quite dry read. But no, that's a great tip. And then finally, we all have those days where we need an extra boost. So what is your mindset ritual that helps you feel empowered and ready to tackle anything?
oh, that's so easy. My walk. And it's now routine, but even if, let's say, it's later in the day or I need a boost or whatever, like walking and getting out of whatever room I'm in or whatever, and walking, fresh air, going outside. I think it's a combination of like the walk, being outside, being in fresh air, absolute shift in mindset, mood. I start to get these intuitive downloads and feel more creative. By far, that's the most important thing that I do.
Amazing, Julie. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. For anyone listening who really resonates with everything that you've shared or wants to follow Julie along, where is the best place to find you?
So definitely my website, julieciardi.com. Come over to Instagram. I love to have conversations there. And as just a gift for everyone too. I mean, if they're interested in knowing more about their human design, because I like to simplify things, I actually created, in my own language, a report. So even if you've tried human design in the past, recommend you go and check this out. It will drop the link, but it's julieciardi.com/magic. And when you go there, you can run your report and it will be unique to you and it will be in language that will inspire you. And I think you'll love it.
Amazing. I will make sure that I've got all the links in the show notes, and I definitely recommend grabbing that particular item there because I think it's really foundational in being able to really understand where to going forward. So thank you so much, Julie, for being on the podcast. It's been an incredible chat, and I look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for being part of this inspiring episode. If you found value in today's discussion, please don't keep it a secret. Share it with a friend on social media, tag me at Your Style Collective, and leave a review. Your support means the world. Join me again next week for another empowering episode of Style and Strategy, the Leadership Series. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember, you're already taking that first step towards your transformation journey. See you next time.